Okay, for this lesson, it's called Connecting Intercepts and Zeros. Finding the zeros is something you guys are going to do in a lot of your math classes for the next 4 years. So whenever you have directions that say to find the zero, what it really is asking you is where does the graph hit the x-axis? Finding a zero means where does the graph hit the x-axis? Or another way you can think of it is it's asking for the x-intercepts. Or as points, those are listed as blank, comma, 0. Because whenever we have a point, it's always x, comma, y. So anytime you have directions that say find the zeros, that's really what it's asking you. And you're going to see this a lot over the next few years for math class. We've been working on quadratics. Quadratics are the U-shaped, the parabolas. When we have those U-shaped graphs, there are different types of solutions you'll see. You'll see sometimes that there are 2 solutions or 2 zeros. And what that graph would look like, a 2 solution graph would be something like maybe like this. So it hits the x-axis right here and it hits the x-axis right here. So there's 2 solutions. There's 2 x-intercepts. You might have a quadratic that has 1 solution. If a graph has 1 solution, it only hits the x-axis 1 time. So maybe like something like this. So it hits it right there 1 time. Or we also could have no solutions. So on a quadratic, that just means it's never going to hit the x-axis. So maybe it's like this. And there's the vertex right there. So it hits the x-axis twice. Here it hits it once, and here it doesn't hit the x-axis at all. One, it's going to ask you to solve by graphing. When it says this, you need to get the equation equal to 0. So before you start working at it at all, you need to make sure it says equals 0. So here's example 1a. The equation is 2x squared minus 5 equals negative 3. 2x squared minus 5 equals negative 3. I need it to say equals 0. So first I need to get the equation set to 0. So look at that side that I want the 0. I need to get rid of minus 3. So to get that to be 0, I add 3. If you add 3 to one side, add it to the other. I'm going to put it right underneath the like term. So I have 2x squared. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2 equals 0. Now once it says equals 0, you can really change 0 to be y. So in your calculator, you're going to put y equals and then your 2x squared minus 2. Okay, grab some graph paper because we are graphing this by hand. I am going to come by and look at your graph because I saw your guys' test. That last test you took, when you had to draw those parabolas, the U's, some of your graphs are just, basically ugly. They're the ugliest graphs. It looks like there was a earthquake going on. They're not smooth graphs. So I'm going to walk around and look at your graph because some of you guys, you don't practice doing it. So then you do it on a test and that's your first time doing it. And it's a mess, and I'm marking it wrong. Your graphs need to be nice and pretty. Okay, so everybody, if you didn't get graph paper, go get some from my table right now. Okay, in your calculator, go ahead and type in y equals 2x squared minus 2. Okay, y equals 2x squared and then minus 2. Make sure your minus 2 drop back down. Make sure it's not in the air. So if you hit graph, your graph should look like this if you typed it in correctly. Okay, we're going to go into the table. If you're using Desmos, your table only goes to what, -2, I think? Okay, so sometimes, yeah, you're going to have to type in -3 or -4. For this one, I think -2 will be fine because if you look at the graph, it mostly is right here. Okay, go get your graph paper. Create your x and y axis. And plot the points so I can see the entire parabola, the U-shaped. And don't do part of it. I've noticed some of you guys are like doing just little 3 dots, and that's it. I need to see a nice U. I'm going to come around and check your graph in a second, so start working. Make sure you're making it curved. It should look like the letter U and not like the letter V. It should not be super straight lines. It should be a curve. And it should have arrows on both sides. Okay, I'm going to come around and check yours. So from the graph, the solution is the x-intercepts. So this is one solution, and this is one solution, or 1, 0. So go ahead and write down what are those 2 points. What are those points? There's 2 solutions here because it hits the x-axis twice. So this point is hitting at -1, 0. This point is hitting at +1, 0. So let me write that. Actually, so in my notes, I'm going to go to page 2 because I'm going to run out of space. So I'm going to be cutting out and gluing this graph in there as well. So your solutions are -1, 0 and +1, 0. And we're going to transition into writing that as x equals -1 is one of your solutions, and then x equals +1 is one of your solutions. This is 1b. 1b is 6x plus 8 equals -x squared. The first thing we always have to do is get it equal to 0. Right now it says -x squared. I need to get rid of a -x squared. So to get rid of a -x squared, I'm going to add x squared. If I add it to one side, I have to add it to the other side. I usually try to write it underneath the like term. There are no x squareds over here, so I'm going to kind of put it over to the side It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you recognize that it's not going to be a like term with the x or with the constant. Okay, so I have x squared plus I have 6x plus 8 equals 0. So x squared is not a like term. They have to have the same exponent on it. So x squareds do not go with x's. So in your calculator, you'll type it in as y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. Okay, go ahead and graph that. Okay, so your graph, you had to go into the table. Oops. You had to make sure you scrolled up because you can see that the vertex, if you look at the y's, you look at where the y's are repeating and find that middle. So the vertex is here at -3, -1. So you were going to need a few numbers before that. So if you're using Desmos, you needed to type in -4, -5, even maybe -6. And then graph those. Your graph should look something like this. It should be U-shaped. And make sure you have arrows. I'm noticing on your test you guys are forgetting arrows because it goes on forever. Okay, now we're finding the solution, or the zeros. This one has 2 zeros. So where it hits the x-axis, it hits it twice. Go ahead and write down what's that 0 and what's that 0. -1, 2, 3, 4. This one's at -4, 0. This one's at -2, 0. So the solutions are -4, 0 and -2, 0. And then we're going to start getting in the habit of writing it as x equals -4 and x equals -2. Okay, you can work by yourself or with a friend. I want to know what's the zeros. X squared minus 4 equals -3. Go ahead and find the zeros. Okay, check your answers up here. First, you had to make it equal to 0. Once it was equal to 0, you can put it into your calculator. You're seeing where it hits the x-axis. It hits at -1 and it hits at +1. Questions on this so far? Okay, we're going to pause here. We'll continue with this lesson tomorrow.